search of economic.
Yeah! Rastafari. Oh, oh, children, home. Wanna go home.
Roots Connections on Q. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. every other Wednesday on Q95, the big station. Dominicans journeyed beyond our shores for decades in search of economic opportunities and educational advancement. Many are ready to give back to their cherished nature island. Welcome to Roots Connections on Q. Join Dr. Simone Matthew on Q95 as we tap into the life and times and expertise of our nature island Dominicans, at home and abroad. From our agriculture and industry to sustainable development, resilience and renewable energy, to the music, art, and entertainment industries. Join Dr. Simone Matthew and guests every other Wednesday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. We examine where they came from, where they have been, where they are now, and how we can move forward together with our brothers and sisters at home and abroad to inspire and elevate our country, our economy, our people, and our youth to achieve excellence and success. Roots Connections on Q, every other Wednesday night, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Only on Q95, the big station.
Jacob is calling his children. Well, right, so we walk. Oh, children, home. Oh, to Zion. Oh.
Good evening, Dominica. A pleasant good evening to you, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Roots Connections on Q, right here on Q95, the big station. It is always great to be in your company for our number one program, which features the ever-changing world where change is only a constant. So this is our program for looking at a world where change is the only constant. So here on Roots Connections, if this is your first time joining us, we feature the change makers of our community, the visionaries, those who are on the front line, who are no longer just sitting on the sideline, talking about what we need to do to move our country, our people, and our region forward, but they're actively engaged in some way to move our people and our region forward. We continue to witness how quickly the world around us is changing. So here on Roots Connections, we engage our visionaries as we explore topics such as the changes we should be concerned about, the changes we should be taking advantage of, and what changes we need to make in order to secure the future of our people. So this evening is no exception. We're asking a very simple but a very loaded question this evening, and that is, how are our men navigating masculinity in an ever-changing world? If you joined us for our last program on July 9th, you will remember we had the Boy Scouts. So this month we're dedicating July to empowering our men, because I've said it before, it seems like we spent a whole lot of time empowering our women, and rightly so, but was it at the cost of leaving our boys behind? So we're seeing the increase in violence, we're seeing the increase in reckless behavior, and unfortunately, we're seeing the increase in suicide in Dominica. So we have to continue to focus on the issue of what I am thinking of as a crisis of our men in Dominica. So that is what we will be doing today. We are happy to be joined by Dr. Kevin Laurent. He's the CEO of Top Edge Leadership Solutions. We are also joined by Mr. Carlton Lando, who's a pharmacist, well-known pharmacist in Dominica, and then also another well-known public figure in Dominica, Pastor Jack Leatham. So again, welcome to Roots Connections on Q. This is episode number 95 for today, and I am your host, Dr. Simone Matthew. As always, before we get started, we always like to pray for our country, Dominica, and the many challenges that we are facing in so many areas. We are so grateful to you, our worldwide audience, whether you're listening to us on Q95 FM radio in Dominica regionally or internationally, or you will join us via social media at Q95 FM radio on Facebook and YouTube, or Push Past 10 on Facebook. So we're looking forward to your engagement. We always have a very active and engaging audience. So we're looking forward to your engagement during this program as always. Lambi, always great to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the studio, on the console, and ready to take the calls later in the program. Good evening to our engineer, Mr. Shoei Norris, Mr. G, and the Q95 family at home and abroad. So again, let's give a very warm welcome to our guests as we invite them to unmute their mics and just tell us a little bit about who they are, where they're from in Dominica, and this being Roots Connections. We're going to talk a little bit about your connections to Dominica before we get into the meat of the conversation. So Dr. Laurent, let's start with you.
Well, thank you, Simone. Such a pleasure to be reunited with you again on a platform such as this. My old friend, we've done many things together, and it's always good to link up with you. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about the Manhood Series, which started earlier on last year, and we would like to continue talking and informing the public about this beautiful thing that has emerged as a vision I had for giving back to my country. And just happy that I am associated with some strong men in Dominica who I have great respect for in their contribution to the development of men in Dominica. And so we have come together as a group of Dominican men to infect and impact the essence of manhood among our communities. And we'll talk further about the Manhood Series that I started. But I'm a man of the sun living in the United States of America, and happy to share. Thank you again.
Yes, excellent. Pastor Jack?
Yes, a very good evening to you, and a very good evening to those, my colleagues. It is such a pleasure to be on this program tonight. And for me, it was a real sacrifice. I had hardly ever sacrificed my Wednesday night. But I am so much invested into this program with Dr. Laurent, a childhood friend. And he was fulfilling part of my vision, that something I've craved for and may not been able to define it as I wanted, the spiritual dynamics for the development of the male man. And often find the conflict of people when they are spiritual always think religion and church. And I think Dr. Laurent is one of the people I have come across who has a clear understanding about spirituality. And because my platform is always screaming out that we are letting the men die spiritually while we are feeding men of all other alleys. So I'm glad to be a part of this program. And when I heard my friends, man I've always respected, Carlton, his straightforwardness and his transparency in presenting different topics. So I followed him for a while. And when I heard he was on board, it kind of gave me the encouragement to do that. So tonight, I am delighted. I think this is providing a platform for me. And I hope it extends and just take wings by itself as to become a national program, a yearly or biennial national program where we can really fit into what I call the spiritual aspect of men. We like sports, we like music, but things that go deeper than that. And then I think this whole program has a great appeal to what I believe is the root cause of many of the negatives we get from men. So
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. And thank you for sacrificing your Wednesday to be with us, Pastor Jack.
Mhm.
Carlton, over to you.
Good evening to you, Simone, and to all the panelists. Good evening. It is a pleasure to be back on with you. I have been a guest in the past. It's been a while since I've been on, but it's always a pleasure to be, talking about topics of relevance, and so particularly as it relates to our boys and men, the male species. We've seen that, and I've always said that when you look at the statistics relating to that particular gender, we recognize that it's of course cause for concern. When you look at one, more men are incarcerated than females. More men are involved in violence than females. More men are onto substance abuse than females. Um, More men die prematurely than females. And so this is of concern to us. And even in terms of mental health challenges, more men tend to end up having the chronic side of mental health. And so it is of importance to us, for me particularly as a health advocate, health educator, that is one of the angles that is extremely important to me. What can we do to save our men from premature deaths, from the ravages of violence and crime, and as well to how can we encourage the young mothers to be able to um, reformulate the way that our boys are socialized and the values and norms that are taught to them and that are exposed to them. And so I'm very happy to be here this evening. I'm actually in Trinidad, but I have spared you. I can spare you some of my time and
Yes.
to do this. Yes.
Yes, and we truly appreciate that. We know everyone is super busy, but it is just wonderful to see that you're taking time out of your busy schedules because this is of such grave importance in terms of what is going on in Dominica. So, again, if you're just joining us, we want to welcome you. This is Roots Connections on Q, and we are looking at how are our men navigating masculinity in an ever-changing world. And today we're featuring the Manhood Series, and this is only volume 1. So, hopefully this is going to lead to a number of other volumes and impactful change, because that is what it is really truly all about. How do we impact change in the lives of those who need it most? So we're continuing our mission to secure the future of our youth in Dominica, especially our young men, because again, we continue to witness the cases of violence, reckless behavior, and suicides in Dominica. So here on Roots Connections, we are continuing to explore opportunities to empower and develop our youth by exploring how they can navigate these very challenging times. So where I wanted us to get started this evening is just let's put a framework around this discussion by starting with our observations. So what are we seeing on the ground? Because I think that will give us a general sense of what the issues are and how we can proceed. So anyone can feel free to chime in with the observations we are seeing with regards to our young men, our boys in Dominica.
Simon, before as we proceed, can I ask how do we share this stream with others that are wanting?
Yes. So check your WhatsApp.
Okay.
I sent you the information so you can share the link.
Okay, great. Thank
And
you.
I also sent it to Carlton. Pastor Jack, I don't have your number.
I'll send it to him.
Laura can send it to you.
I'll send it.
All right, then. Thank you.
Yes. So as Dr. Laura is doing that, Pastor Jack, you can go ahead and tell us your observations.
I think one of the things that concerned me very much, and I think Carlton did a very good job at highlighting the concern. The statistics for all negativity always bend towards the men. And I had a prison ministry for many years. And really maybe God didn't want it to happen. I always ask myself, how could I change the statistics at the prisons? Because during the 15 years I ran through the program at the prison, I only encountered two females. 15 years, two females, and all the rest. I've made friends that have lasted for this 15 years from jail. They're still my friends who came out and we are still friends. But I couldn't believe. I questioned myself, and the prison people gave us liberty to go in, and I spoke to these two ladies, and they had more liberty than the rest of the prison, 300, I think, 300, 200 something people, inmates that were there. And that alerted me from this, how many years ago, that how comes we have, when I listened to the statistics of the United States of America, what population is black, what population of black men are behind bars. And so Carlton did a very good job in articulating in terms of mental health, in terms of premature death, in terms of everything we see on the ground. And the question, and for me being a spiritual person, and I've been a student of the Bible for all my life, and I've never found anything in scripture to support that type of statistics, where even in Judaism, the emphasis is a man's world, where the men were taught. And I came to Christianity, the same thing, to lead. So how could men, what happened? And maybe I'm not studying enough. What happened that at any juncture, at any time in life, at any period of time, that we found men always being in the negative side of the coin? How did that we come to that? So on the ground, that is the reality we have to deal with. The question is, how do we change that? And this program is one of them, because everybody's asking, where do we start? When do we start? And the Manhood Series did the right thing, said the right time to start is now. And the right thing to do is what anything you can do. And this program is doing something.
Yes.
And we hope that it takes a wing of itself.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Jack. Carlton, your observations to expound on what you mentioned before.
Definitely. I too have had a mentorship program at the Dominica State Prison. I have met with many prisoners where I've gone in more or less as a mentor, but even as a participant observer, in the sense that while I mentor them, I'm observing several things. And one of the practical methodologies that I have used is giving them the opportunity to not just express themselves verbally, but to express themselves in writing. I remember the one time we were looking at purpose. We were looking at the whole subject matter of purpose, what it means, and do you have a purpose, and do you understand that you were born with and for a purpose? And many of the young men there, they they had never understood that concept in such a way. It had never meant anything to them. And you would hear the stories of the fragmented family, a child that was very quote unquote troublesome at school, always getting into trouble, always fighting, and had to be expelled. The child that the boy, the man that is now incarcerated, saying that he has never met his father, he doesn't know who his father is, and you see the tears running down their eyes, and you see that the wounds are very deep, that it's more than just what meets the eye. Um, and so we're seeing that, from what I'm seeing, that there are layers of variables that that are credited for the sort of evidential um, um, what we see now. Well, I should say the evidence that we're seeing. One is the socialization process is different. The way boys are socialized from girls, that is still very much, there is still much a difference. The structure of education methodologies, that is one that I have been placing close um, attention to, know that in times past, a child of, like myself, was born in the early 70s. Many of the schools still had male males as head teachers or principals. We've seen a massive shift within the school systems where generally most of the schools are governed by females. And most of the educators now are females. If you look at almost every primary school in Dominica, you can hardly find a male primary school teacher. You may find a few in the secondary schools, but most of the teachers are females. When you look at maybe even the bias as to how these teachers may may relate to a boy versus a girl that is troubled. So
Mhm.
that is something to that I'm placing close attention to. The lack of mentorship, and that is something that is very, even with the way our children are raised, you will see that a young man has a boy, for example, a boy child. He's excited about his boy child, but it's more a form of force than than actually nurturing a boy for change. So you find that young father will buy that boy all the brand clothes, will have that boy dressed almost as a mock or a mimic of who the father is. So the father will have the Jordan shoes, the boy will have the Jordan shoes, he'll have the cut back to front, he may have his ASPS. And you see that the values now are sort of questionable. What value did that father learn? And is he now quantifying materialism to make up for what he think is being a manly parent? So there are a lot of variables in there, but and of course, the challenge of mental health and the silence of men. Men are often not seen um, to be good communicators. We're not very good at expressing our emotions. We are oftentimes teased if we do go to another male friend and say, well, this is happening to me. We are teased, we are ostracized, we're told that we're Marco, we're told that we're weak. And men oftentimes sort of avoid these types of stigmatization and they just don't talk. And so we see later down the ramifications of such actions.
Mhm. Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, it is a multifaceted, multi-layered issue, and it is great that we are addressing this because, as I come to you, Dr. Laura, for your observations, one of my concerns is: do we get a sense that there's a sense of urgency to address what we're talking about this evening, to address the issues that are concerning men? Or do we simply say, you know, what, another suicide, another gun violence? It seems like it's just passive, that it's just yet another incident. We talk about it for 2 seconds and then nothing happens. So as we come to you for your observations, because I know you don't live in Dominica, but you do visit Dominica, do you get a sense that there's a sense of urgency to address these issues surrounding our boys and our young men?
Yeah, Simon, thank you again. And I think Carlton has and Barjack have hinted on why the essence of where this hot pot has begun and where it is and where it's going. Um, there is as much a sense of urgency for healing men as there is for many other aspects of society. I'm being sarcastic when I say that. You can see that people have been very apathetic, very indifferent about addressing essential things. It's almost like people have left the character ethics in exchange for personality ethics. What I mean by that, character ethics taught on the things that our grandmothers and our grandparents taught us. The do unto others as you'd have to do unto you, be kind, be honest, be, but now we have found that people will use by any means necessary, people strive to be in the top of the ladder, whether it's trampling over people, whether it's embezzling, whether it's stealing your praises, your whatever, they steal your intellectual property, anything to get them above. I mean, we have lost the respect, the mutual respect. Another thing that I think has really gone awry in our community is the lack of relationships. The people are not as prone to relate as we used to before. As a young man in a village, the old farmer walking down the street would relate to a child walking up to school. You are doing something wrong on the roadside. The farmer is walking down with his cutlass in his hand, his dog on his side. He will correct you. He will see that you're going wrong because your parents sent you to school and there you are just messing around on the roadside. They would almost be entitled to tell you something. Today, we could see somebody having a fight. We prefer to actually video that person and take pictures and hally hoo and quickly go live rather than try to see if we can intervene or bring peace to a chaotic situation. So I think the concept of, and I always say that, gradual and then sudden. In most of the problems we are facing today, there was a gradual rise and then a sudden effect. When it was gradual, we said nothing. And when it arrived on our doorstep, we are unable to handle it. And so, just like the gun crisis, even in America, there was a point when guns were just being sold like hot bread. Everybody buys a gun. Now they cannot control what the sale of gun has done. We in Dominica, we look at the same thing. There was a kind of looseness and quiet ease about many things that were slowly coming in. But if you don't nick it in the bud when it is supposed to, even the Bible, which is my book of standards now, it supports that. It says, a word spoken in due season, how good is it? It's almost like a rhetorical question. It is a good thing when a word needs to be spoken, that it is spoken, because it makes a difference. It can change the trajectory of somebody's behavior. But no, instead we have taken a relaxed mood. And so what we are facing in Dominica especially is something where people just remained quiet and at ease, and all of a sudden the hurricane is on our doorstep and we have nowhere to run. So, but I still believe in second chances. I still believe in, and living in America, I always say America is a place that gives you second chance. Men, there's still a remnant of men who can make a difference, who would like to be saved from this chaotic life. And so Manhood Series is intended to touch on the relational and personal growth of people seeking for it. And so we hope that as we continue to do those things, that some of those issues that are present with us today can be curbed or can be reversed, and some people can make sense out of their lives as a result of our intervention.
Yeah, and we cannot wait to hear about the men's symposium that was held earlier this year and the Manhood Series and just what is the strategic plan moving forward. But I want us to stay in this area for just a little bit more as we look at the framework of the issue. Because one of the things that we hear politicians say is, it is not Dominica alone, right? Look at America. If job opportunities was the problem that our young men are facing, then the US would have less gun violence because there's so many jobs. So I just want us to put what has been said as a way of looking at how our country is approaching this issue. And I just want your opinions on that. Because the other thing I've noticed that the politicians say as well, instead of expressing real concern and focusing on addressing the issue head on with targeted solutions, they like to proudly proclaim it is not as bad as in Trinidad. It is not as bad as in St. Lucia, as if to say that we should not be concerned. And Dr. Laura, I'm happy that you kind of alluded to what I'm talking about, as if to say we ought not to be concerned, we ought not to be seeking solutions because it's not so bad as yet. But we all know when stuff hits the fan, it's too late, because you have to attack the issue when it is still not as bad as St. Lucia and not as bad as Trinidad. So, Pastor Jack, Look, I want to call you Leon. I want to call I want to call you Leon Carlton.
Carlton.
So your thoughts on that, because that is why I asked the question. If we get a sense that there's a sense of urgency when we hear such passive comments that it's not as bad, and the job situation is not the problem. What are your thoughts?
Well, um, I chuckle not because it's funny, but unfortunately, you use the example of a politician. And I would say, especially to those of you listening in Dominica, a politician in Dominica is the least person for you to listen to for any advice on anything. So, because the problems of society is to their profit. And so when the comments are made to enhance our ignorance as to what is happening in the region or in America to compare to what is happening in Dominica, I'll say, so what? What does that have to do with me? It's unfortunate that people know more about Trump than they know about Mrs. Garrett. They know more what is happening in Africa of Traore, and they know Ibrahim Traore and everything, but they are not concerned about what is happening at our doorstep. What we are saying is that we have a problem. We don't care who else has a problem. If your house is leaking, you don't care whether your neighbor's own is leaking too. After you look about your own, when you're on an airplane, the instruction is first put on your mask, and then you can help somebody else. So it's not that we are not concerned about our neighbors or the region, but it doesn't sound very intelligent to make that comparison to express a present situation that is just not an opinion, but a fact that is affecting us on all levels of society. I wouldn't even use, and I think you just mentioned one, to say unemployment is the cause. This is a multi-layer problem. And what we can say, one of the things I said, is to do what God did in the beginning. My Bible, again, is my reference. Let's talk. Let's start to talk about what is happening in our doorstep, in our society. Let's talk. And that is one of the, let me just offer that. My conviction is we need in Dominica, and I hope this Manhood Series present that, a team of people or a whole set of people who are willing to listen, because many of the conclusions that we make about men are because we have never heard from men in the right atmosphere, right place to tell us what is the real story so we can come up with a real solution. We make assumptions. We are very condemning. We are very negative about men, which cause them to shut down more. But if we could develop a team of people who are just willing to listen, who may not even have the solutions for what they hear, may make recommendations to other people. But I've seen this crisis for over 40 years. And I've come to the conclusion many times I put my foot in my mouth because I did not listen. Just how many of us are willing to hear what men have to say? And that was one I was proud of this program, Manhood program, when it gave men a forum. At least I heard a level of vulnerability within. If you give them a chance, they will tell you. So most of the politicians do not understand a thing about men. They are not ready to listen to anything that is happening. And some of them are just, they don't know anything on the ground except vote for me. So they are the least of people to take anything to even make any conclusions about what they're saying. Our politicians, locally, I'm talking about maybe other countries, but locally, we don't have politicians you can make reference to for education or for on any subject matter. So that is what I would say. They are not a very good reference point about our solutions for the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, Carlton, your thoughts?
Well, I will sort of broaden this argument a little, and in the sense that one of the concerns that I've had as well is the bias in which that we have a Department of Gender Affairs in government. That department has been around for many years, since under Eugenia Charles, and may have been there before. And when you hear the Ministry of Gender Affairs, oftentimes it prejudices women, because I think that that ministry itself has focused more on the rights of women and children, particularly girls. They've focused a lot on um, educating the public on child abuse, domestic violence, that type of thing. But even when it comes to domestic violence, it is generally more prejudiced towards a female victim than a male
Mm-hmm.
victim. So when you look at the strata in which administrative decisions are made and are measured, it oftentimes neglects the mailman. The mailman is not really part of that. And when you look at the educational system, a lot of our men on the road who are you would find in gangs or on the block, many of them are not so academically inclined. They may not be the ones that would want to do the biology, chemistry, physics, or accounts, but they may have an interest in the auto mechanics, the woodwork, the other subjects like that. Um, in times past, those subjects were subjected to sort of discrimination. It was almost like you were dumb to be doing them. I'm now hearing more conversations about the reformation or I don't know what the term they used about reforming education and trying to make it more holistic. But when we look at these things, how men has been sort of stigmatized and have been placed almost in a cubicle versus women who have had sort of more opportunities, even from a societal standpoint. Women have always seemed to get more sympathy from men. If you were to walk on the road and see two guys fighting, unless a cutlass or knife or gun is not part of it, people may not necessarily share. But if you see two women fighting, they may not have that object, they may not have that weapon, but somebody will more likely quickly intervene and sort of, you know, come or diffuse the fight. So we are seeing that there is a sense of neglect, a sense of bias in terms of how men are treated. And I believe to even, I don't want I'm going to say that quickly, but even when the government, I remember that election, at the election period when the prime minister came up and said that they were decriminalizing the use of marijuana, and we saw our statistics are showing that we've seen a surge in the use of marijuana among adolescents and young people, and that is actually one of the gateway drugs that actually a lot of this marijuana people get to infuse it with other drugs, and then it has compounded to what we're seeing. So even with those decisions on what merit, how objective was that decision before it was made? Was it something that was an emotional decision versus an objective decision? And did we think of the ramifications, particularly on our male child? Because oftentimes, because of peer pressure, because of the paradigm shift in subcultures and all of that. And we didn't talk about the definition or characterization of masculinity, because I think it is one of the major variables in this debate. What is masculinity and how is it characterized? Because how I may look at masculinity, somebody else may look at it totally different. And so that that may be incorrect definition, maybe what might be perpetuating all of what we're seeing.
Yeah, and that is a brilliant question, Carlton. So let me make a note of that so we can address it. But again, Pastor Jack asked a very profound question when he was giving his introduction, and he asked, "What happened? How did we get here? What happened?" So, Dr. Laura and anyone else who might want to chime in, what happened? So I think we have to take a look back with the family structure, because we know that is where socialization, norms, values, that is where it begins. It begins in the home. And by the way, everyone on Facebook and YouTube, I see your comments coming in. Please keep them coming. I will get to them at about 9 p.m. this evening. So, guys, what happened? How did we get here?
I think people have lost their way in exchange for that monster thing called greed. Greed to earn more, to look better, to have all at the expense of others. I think that love, that concept of love has been distorted, and it has turned more into love thyself, love me. And I don't care at what cost, but I'm going to love me. And because of that, you don't find that there is that interdependence. In other words, we move from those three stages of maturity, which is dependency. When you're a young kid, everything's all about me. Mommy, you do that for me. Daddy, do that for me. Me. What did you buy? Me. I want to have to go Rosa with you. I want to be happy. Me. Then we get a little older, we become independent. And because we're independent, we take charge of our bills, we take charge of our movements, our jobs, and we feel man, we feel big. But we cannot stop at independence either. We must now elevate to the next level of maturity, which is interdependency, which means we look at beyond ourselves and say, how is my neighbor doing? How is the next person? How can I contribute to my community for a better, for a greater good? And so people have stayed at the independent stage and even revert back to dependency stage, where if you can do for me, then I love you. If you can give me, then I love you more. And I don't care about whether the other person gets what I'm getting in extra. So I think until we go back to the basics, which the basics, I don't care how far we go, the basics are foundational. We must go back to the basics. And whether we run high or low, there are certain principles of life we cannot escape. We may adopt values, but values are variable. They can change. And values, even the worst man, like I told the group of manhood, Jeffrey Dahmer had values. You also have, what's his name? Hitler had values, because Hitler was thinking of preserving a certain class of people against everybody else. And he had a value system that was taught among his followers and people follow. But was his values, or were his values aligned with principle? The basic principles of mankind and our interdependency of mankind was wrong, was skewed in his head. So not all values we should follow, but we need to follow principles. And I think until we go back to that, and I know it's hard, it's a hard road, because we have gone so far in that it's going to take a very long time to steer back the Titanic. But it's possible. And if you can rescue and remind and reactivate, re-energize a few, it's better than none.
Yeah, certainly. Pastor Jack, in your role, 40 years you mentioned, how have you seen the family structure change? Or have you seen, I should ask, the family structure change? And what has been the impact of that in terms of the predicament we find our young men and boys in today?
Um, I have to be very careful in articulating my own personal opinion. When I entered into, I was not always in the same church that I am. I was surprised, very, very surprised at what was available on a Christian basis about the family. Going into the stage, Kevin will tell you that, to the level of becoming superintendent of the denomination, I was still always upset, angry, and feel deceived that there was very little, in essence, about the family. I remember when I came to church and I began to attain a certain level of influence. The question was asked, the same question: why is the family the foundation of the world, and there is nothing going on in church about family life? There's no program. I know of Bible study, prayer meeting, women's league, this and that, but there is nothing on the family. And that got me to organize what we still have today after 40 something years, family life session and which I still complain about every first Sunday, because I could not understand the dynamics of a family. I am nowhere preaching that I came from a perfect family, but I found a common denominator in almost all the families in the church was that of an absent male. And that kept the church, the pastor, that early stage, together, because almost all the men in the church spoke about the father was, um, let me see, being a little vulnerable for myself. When I grew up, all I knew my father was in England. I don't even know where England was. If I take a bus or a car or take a bicycle, I go England. But I just heard he was in England. Nobody explained where he was. And this guy says his father was in Curacao, and this guy his father was in Cuba. And that's how I learned most of my geography, by absent fathers. They were in some country, somewhere, someplace on the map. And because of that, I could see that most of the men that I pastored had the same common desire, same challenges because of the absent male. And they were common. And up to this present moment, I can tell you, if you speak to men in the right, if you gain their confidence to tell you, and you interview at least 10 men, you will find that this common denominator, and you will find that almost every one of them have had the same experience growing up. A whole lot of the negativity, I wouldn't just say because of unemployment or gun violence and all that, but there are a lot of emotional, unexpressed emotional hurts, scars, mental problem that is suppressed among men. It has destroyed the family structure. And men, what you were as a boy and as a man, that's what you're going to become as a husband and a father. And so the evil keeps going on. So where we are pressurized to be good fathers and good husbands, we have condemned, criticized, demoralized, all kind of eyes you can find about as young men. How do we make that leap from being that young man with an absent father and all the negatives of life? You remember what I said that on the last program, what little girls are made up of and what little boys are made up of? We hear it as we grow up. And then all of a sudden you get to be an adult where you're independent and everybody's looking forward for you to become that responsible father and that responsible husband. How do we make that transition except for something I believe deeply in, the grace of God?
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Carlton, over to you. And then I actually looked up the definition of masculinity. So thank you for pointing that out, Carlton. So I'm going to read that, and then I want to say maybe just about a 10-minute conversation on that before we start talking about the Men's Symposium and the Manhood Series and the rest of the program. So Carlton, your thoughts, the structure of the family, the predicament we find our young boys and men in, even within organizations now. We see that the majority of organizations, because I've had lots of programs with organizations, and the majority of the leadership and the body of these organizations are made up of women. So what happened? That's what we're looking at. What happened? And I truly believe it begins with the family structure. So Carlton, your thoughts?
Well, looking at it a bit deeper, I love the perspective that Pastor Jack gave, but I'm looking at it from the psychosocial perspective. Um, Looking at the male child, how that child is socialized in the family, what goes on to that child psychologically, um, what avenues, resources are there to help that male child as they encounter difficulties in their lives. Um, how many of them do have that cushion in the home when something happens to them, whether it's something that they like or dislike, to at least have a discussion? How many of our men have truly experienced physical and emotional um, bonding? That is something too that is that's lacked a lot. Emotional and physical bonding. We still have many men um, who have never ever been told by their father or their mentor or somebody that is a male figure in the family, I love you. They have never heard that. They may have that perception that my father loves me, or my uncle loves me, or my grandfather loves me, but to verbalize it, they do not hear that. And we still have fathers today who are raising boys and raising girls and still cannot say that. They don't know what it's difficult for a male man to sometimes even kiss his son. It is very difficult for him. It is difficult for him to actually hug his son. He might knock his son like he would knock his partners. But in terms of embracing his son and, you know, talking to his son and that type of thing, the physical connection, the physical emotional connection, that is something that still lacks. And even in the advent of social media and the modernization that we've seen, we still see, yes, the modern day father, they have made some significant strides, but yet still we are seeing that the fathers of yesteryear, so the fathers who were born in the 50s and the 40s, many of them did not experience that. And many of them did not, they could not foster such a relationship with their children. I am a product of that. I always say I could not, I don't think I ever heard my biological father told me he loves me. He loved me. But I know for a fact, even as an adult, when someone would have mentioned my name, he would have had the biggest smile on his face. But he could not have said it. And so you see the fragmentation from an emotional, a psychosocial standpoint. And how do we now teach our men that it's okay to express emotions and the right ways of expressing emotions? So I think that in itself has fragmented men immensely, and some way somehow has left many men with intense scars. Some just go through the motion, but if you were to put them in a particular safe space and give them the opportunity to express some of the issues that they encountered, you'll
Mhm.
be amazed to see the number of men that will break down crying.
Yeah, and that is one of the things I was most impressed about the men's symposium, an opportunity to speak up. Because I think of a lot of what we're seeing reflected in the behavior of our young men, from the suicides to the reckless behavior to lashing out in violence, is because they are repressing their emotions. Like you
Mhm.
said, Carlton, you're being called a Mako, you're being told man up when you try to express an emotion, but we are all humans. So we all have these emotions. But when, as a boy and as a young man, you are taught to repress those emotions, to not express those emotions, because when you express your emotions, you're actually venting, right? So you're actually venting. It's actually a release in terms of getting these emotions out, which is so important. But when you are not able to do so because of societal norms, you internalize those emotions. So you either implode, which means you harm yourself, or you explode and you harm others. And so, I want us to also get to a point where we're talking about purpose, because I think it was Carlton as well that mentioned about men of the young men had never even considered that you ought to have a purpose in life. So we still have a lot to dissect, but I just wanted to very quickly go to the definition of masculinity that I pulled up. So it says masculinity equals social expectation of being a man. The term masculinity refers to the roles, behaviors, and attributes that are considered appropriate for boys and men in a given society. Masculinity is constructed and defined socially, historically, and politically rather than being biologically driven. We can think of masculinity as a shorthand for talking about the social expectations and practices of manhood. Expectations and practices which are reinforced every day by individuals as well as by institutions such as the law, the economy, religion, education, and the media. Women, as well as men, are involved in reinforcing the social expectations of masculinity. Example, when a mother tells her son to act like a man and not to cry. So, very impactful. Your thoughts on masculinity, and are we seeing a switch in terms of the expectations of our young men or boys? Or is it that they are no longer able to meet these expectations and it's leading to the frustration that we're witnessing?
Yeah,
I
go
okay.
ahead, Carlton.
I really like that because it takes me right back to my sociology class with gender and inequality. And I remember even when I was talking about the characterization of masculinity, I wrote on my paper here, genetics versus social construct, and how is it defined? Because again, to when we look at the Caribbean male man, I was reading something from Errol Miller, the I think it was called the oh, I can't remember the term, but one of the things that came up in his story was, in particular, the Jamaican society, that the Jamaican men, in the time when he wrote that book, they actually rejected education because they saw it as a female thing. So it was almost girly to go to school and do well. And that was very very interesting when I read that book. But the genetics, the looking at our men, we look at our most of our men in Dominica, they want to have a scooter, a, a DMX, I can't remember how it's called, or whatever, the bike, um have the Lacoste clothes, have the pants on the below the bottom, have the cap backwards, smoke two weed, that kind of a thing, and many chins in their neck. And that is the characterization or the definition or the image that they sort of align with masculinity and not recognized. So having good manners, being well read, being well spoken, taking care of yourself and your family, taking care of the elderly, respecting them, that almost doesn't seem masculine. So the structure and the characterization, how do we know re-educate our men as to the true essence of masculinity? And I think if we do spend time with that, then it's going to really, I don't think it's merely just from a religious standpoint, but in terms of the as you said, the social expectations. But with the social expectations, we are still faced with the resistance of choice because people will say, it's my life. I choose. You cannot tell me I don't have to follow the norms of structure, what society says. So we still have to be able to get that and let them understand, yes, with choice comes responsibility and accountability as well. So yes, you have a choice to drive at 100 miles per hour on a narrow road, but you also have you may face the consequence of dying or injuring others or injuring yourself and that type of thing. So I think the definition that you gave, I love it. And I think we really need to come back. And I think that's where Dr. Laura may have to censor a little on the characterization of the male man. What does it take? What is the true essence of masculinity?
Dr. Laurent?
These last two comments by both Carlton and Pastor Jack just spoke so much to the essence of where we are heading. Emotions. While we are driving our men away from expressing what is a God-given gift, emotions, and we have seen over time how much damage that has caused to stifle emotions. Yet we are not learning. We are still guarding the non-expression of emotions. We need to break that cycle. And breaking that cycle should go hand in hand with two things Carlton mentioned that was burning inside me. With if men would go back to, or if society, let's say society would reorient itself to two basic concepts being taught from the elementary level up to the leadership of the country. And that is one, accountability, and two, responsibility. If these things are taught and indoctrinated or inculcated in people's heads over and over in different forms, we ourselves, every one of us, taking seriously what accountability means and what responsibility means, that will become the culture that men, young boys will grow up knowing there is such a thing as I am being accountable, I'm being responsible for my decisions. My decision has consequences, like Carlton just said. I cannot just willy-nilly live my life. My actions affect the next person. How then do we bring that back? Is by teaching, by discussions, by having group sessions. And that is kind of where the Manhood Series is leading, where we can bring people together. For some, it will be a reminder. For others, it will be an introduction. But nonetheless, it's a way of infiltrating what we do not have or what you do. We need to bring it back. We need to rehearse this again and teach that these concepts have positive consequences. And that's kind of where we're heading with this Manhood Series.
Yes, and that is where we're going to be heading next. But I wanted to make sure, Pastor Jack, if you have any comments before we go over to the
Yeah,
studio.
my I was listening at the scripture.
You're breaking up.
Give me a minute. You'll come back.
Man would it ease, and can it be, would it cover all the aspect of manhood? And as you said that, I was trying to tick boxes in my mind, and the question I end up with, would that definition cover what manhood was 4 or 5 decades ago? What was a man 50 years ago in the eyes of society? And I found my conclusion is the cultural shift or the societal development that has taken place rapidly is like conditioning one generation to face another generation that they were not prepared for. And in simple words is, what a man was in this time had a certain, maybe most of this description would not even fit into what an actual male man was. For example, I know years, I am not too young but not too old, when washing of plates would not be a manly thing to do. And I remember staying in my pulpit saying that years ago, many years ago, and maybe it was offensive and not the best of expression. I said, if soap and water can wash away your manhood, you never had any at all. It's just soap and water can wash your manhood away, your masculinity. You never had it to begin with. So there were a lot of things that in one age, one dispensation, that you can describe as manhood. Today, I don't remember many years ago, if I couldn't remember any one of my peers had an earring. But then I saw my sons were earring. That was a feminine thing to do, still to the some. But the next generation, or this generation, it's a sign of masculinity. I can remember one searching about the same topic on my own, masculinity, and that word macho was always used, what a macho man is. And the thing that discouraged me was, under the description by one of the writers, was it's exaggerated masculinity. Macho To be a macho is exaggerated masculinity. And if you have to exaggerate anything, it means its existence is small. You're trying to make it bigger, which found out it's an acute sign of insecurity. So men on a whole had to play macho, exaggerate their masculinity because they felt so small inside. And I don't know how much of that description would fit into society after society after society, because it seems there is an evolution, a constant change of what is a real man as the centuries go by. What you felt on the slave plantation to be a man would not be the same thing you feel today as a man. So I am saying we are preparing a generation sometime to face another generation that is not prepared for what it is to be a man. So that contributes to a lot of confusion and creates a whole ton of irresponsibility with false expectation of society.
Certainly. So, yes, Dr. Laurent, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and I second what Jack is saying. The cultural are shifting, but then where do we stop? Where do we
That's
go?
right.
And so it's important that those who believe in, and again, I'm going back to the keyword, principles don't change. Styles can change, behaviors can change, but if your behavior is not aligned with principle, then you are likely to fall in the same jugumu. But if you are based on principle, in other words, being accountable, I don't care how many people go that way and shift that way. If you know what the essence of accountability is, you alone, you one can stand up. That is being a man to me. You one can say, I don't go along with this, even if everybody, or I'm not going to say yes when everybody's saying no. I'm not going to say no just because they say no. If my yes is based on principle, I'm going to say it. That is what, to me, manhood, that is where, because in the past, it took a man sometimes alone to stand up. Today we have people going with the group think, whatever. Oh, I want to be popular, I want to be liked. Therefore, I'm going to lean towards where, look, you see it in politics, you see it in some areas, in the community. If I'm going to benefit from something that Simon is doing, even if I know it's not grounded in principle, I'm going to go along with it because I'm getting fed, I'm getting money. There should not be. We need people to stand up and stand up as men. Men meaning standing your ground despite, and if it means taking your death because of it, that to me, that's how the old men of yesterday stood, generally speaking, you know.
Yeah, so when we come back from the break to the studio, we definitely want to delve more into the symposium and the Manhood series to explore everything that went on during the symposium and everything about the Manhood series. And kind of just listen as we get the calls and I read the comments in case you want to comment on anything that is being said from our audience. So let me over to you.
Roots Connection and Q, taking your calls right now. The numbers are as follow: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. Those are local numbers. And the international number is 305-432-9624. We'll be running those numbers one more time. 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, 305-432-9624. Back to you, Simon.
Yes, thank you for that. So let us go over to Facebook and see what everybody is talking about. But before we do, just a reminder, if you joined us late, we are talking about how our men navigating masculinity in an ever-changing world, and we're featuring the Manhood Series, and this is volume number 1. So we have as our guests Dr. Kevin Laurent, Mr. Carlton Lando, and Pastor Jack Leatham. So let's see what's going on with Facebook. David Joseph, always great to see you. He says, greetings and good evening to each and everyone. Looking forward to another great program tonight. Empress says, blessings to you, Dr. Simone, to all the gentlemen of the soil present this evening. Great topic. And I am presently listening. Carl Kofi James, always nice to see you. He says, greetings and blessings. Greetings to my classmate, Dr. Laurent. Nice to see you, Carl. My mom says, good evening. David Joseph, let's see what David says. The fact that there are more men in our prison than there are women should be of no surprise to anyone. Naturally, men are more aggressive and violent than women. Women tend to be nurturing and comforting, whereas men are ruled by machoism and ego. It's a man's world, and we will lead and dominate wherever and whenever. Let's see, Empress says, so much is pacified or the status quo here and not actually looking deep into the issues. Sadly, Caribbean men are not nurtured in a manner to express their feeling, but to put on a machismo sort of attitude about what they are feeling. And then David continues, part of the problem is that men are so busy trying to conquer the world that we pay little attention to ourselves, who really are neglecting the men when it is the men who are in control of almost every aspect of society. The truth is that men have always been reckless in their behavior since the beginning of time. Let's take somebody else. Peter Carbon, community life and community cohesion help to create the environment for the socialization of young men. Community groups and sporting activities was the main outlet for these youth to express themselves. LL on YouTube says that fathers and uncles provide stability, discipline, and identity, helping boys navigate masculinity in a healthy way. Brothers and peers offer camaraderie, conflict resolution skills, and a sense of belonging. Without these bonds, young men may struggle with anger, isolation, or toxic masculinity. Strong male role models prevent cycles of neglect, teaching boys how to love and communicate. So we have a lot of great thoughts coming in. Empress says more programs for boys and from young men back then, like Boy Scouts. And then David says, too often we allow pride and ego to control how we behave at a given time. The fact that a man washes plates or even does laundry should never be used to question someone's manhood or masculinity. As a boy, I was taught to do household chores by my mother and mainly my grandmother. Today, as a man, I am happy that she did because it made me the man I am today. And then Teresa says, very interesting topic. So guys, thank you for your feedback and your comments on the Facebook and YouTube Live. If you have any other comments, you can feel free to post them. So any thoughts, anything you want to share based on the comments that are coming in so far? Back to the panel.
I just wanted to say hello to my classmate, Kofi James, Carl Kofi James. That, Carl, talking about this, you are one of those people I consider a man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You have been so consistent about your identity and who you are.
Yep.
And you're not a man that cater for people's opinion. You've always been like that in school, and I watch your adult life, man. And to me, I find this is a man who stands up backing his daughters, growth and development. I watch him. You're very much social media oriented. But I tell you, I kind of like your style is your style, and you stand strong. And too many people vacillate and they do not know where they stand. But when I see a man who can hold his own for the good, not just because, but for the good of others. And my classmate also, Dr. Andrew Carbon, thanks for reaching out. We appreciate your listening and chiming in. We need all men like you to contribute to this manhood thing, because we're doing this thing really with the same essence that we grew up under. And I know what you guys think. We have not spoken in a while, but if you have some ideas, forward them my way. I'll be happy to incorporate that in our movements going forward.
Jack, Carlton, anything you want to share on the comments?
Oh, not really. None of the comments.
All right, cool. So we're going to move on. So let's talk about the symposium. So tell us, when was the symposium? Dr. Laura, tell us, how did the idea even come forth? So kind of just tell us a little bit more about that.
That idea, it was born out of my quiet time. I went to Dominica last year about 3 times. And in my village of Grand Bay, by extension, Mountain, I was very disappointed in the lack of leadership that now exists compared to when I grew up. And on the bus, sometimes I'll listen to how people speak, walking down the block to see how the young people interact or don't interact. And I just saw things were different. And it almost broke my heart to see who I couldn't identify who the leaders were. Some people are dead and gone. But I remember a vibrant grande, a vibrant society where people learn to respect certain key figures because they upheld things like the basic principles. They look for community development. They look for, and I did not see the presence of that too much. And then I continue to observe Dominica as a whole and say, but we are talking about development for Dominica, economic development, all kind of other development. We have big infrastructure plans for the country. But who is Dominica? The men and women of Dominica make Dominica. I don't care what material or artificial thing that you show me. True Dominica are the people of Dominica. And for Dominica to develop, the people must develop. And I believe leadership does not only go to those who are elected or are in government. Leadership is each individual is a leader. We have called personal leadership. And I think it drew me to say, how can I impact as many people as I can in doing what I know best, and that is teaching, that is people development, organizational change management. How can I enter that space and make a difference? And this manhood thing came. If I were to tackle the men, maybe we could turn things around, because like Carlton gave the statistics earlier on about the only bad things are predominantly done or done to and for the men and by the men. And how can we change that? Or we just gonna down? I didn't go to Brandwick, Middle School and grammar school and then sixth form college, and came to America and pick up all that education experience as well to just sit down and do nothing. I may not have money to give, but if I have an advice, if I have a teaching, if I have some kind of trajectory that I can lead somebody on, then I think I've done my duty as a citizen of Dominica. So I decided to reach out to a couple people that I admire and see their trend, like Carlton Lando, Brother Jack, and a few more men that I have on my team. And we decided, oh, let me go and launch this first series, volume 1. And it was remarkable. We had about 45 men, or we had catered for 50, and the turnout was great. The excitement, the passion for what was going on, the participation level was very high. The people want more of it. That's why we called what we had volume. We intend to have several volumes, maybe 2 a year, and we're in the process of planning the next volume. But volume 1 went very well. We had interactive sessions, we had breakout sessions with Pastor and Carlton. These were all team leaders and several others, and they were in interviews, so to speak, leading the discussions in their groups to come back and report to the greater group as to what people were saying on certain key areas. And I will open it up now to Carlton and Brother Jack to give their experience of what that session was like for them.
Yeah, and certainly, and also Pastor Jack and Carlton, why did you decide to join the Manhood Series? Why did you decide to get involved?
Anything that would, let me state it that way. As a spiritual person, I thought that even people of faith too many times throw their hands up in the air and just give up. Everybody, some people may have great ideas, but they think, what is that? I remember when Jesus was feeding the 5,000 people, the guy said, we have just a couple bread and a few fish. What can we do? I said, what is that among so many people? We can feed them. And I think we adopt that attitude, and that we see such great devastating situation in our society, and we throw our hands up in the air and we do nothing. Anyone who would have come around with to do at least something would get me excited. And when my friend came up with that idea, I immediately became excited, because I said, at least, okay, one person has enough courage to stand up and say, let's do something. I don't know if I would even care about too much. I wanted it to succeed. It was beyond my expectation. For me, one of the key things that stood out was
Let's give him a minute. He should be coming right back. We're giving Pastor Jack a minute to come back. Okay, maybe Carlton, take it away while we wait for him.
As one of the younger men in the organizing committee, I recognize that men my age group, men at least 40 years into their 50s, do have a story to tell. And when Pastor Dr. Laura came to call me up and said to me that he had this plan and this, activity that he wanted to put together, and I was actually the right person that he wanted to sort of mobilize the men and so forth. It was something that intrinsically I connected with and I wanted to do. I wanted to do because, as I said, I do a program at the state prison, and based on the things and that I'm seeing and hearing, it concerns me. Every time I see another young man as a vagrant on the road, it concerns me. Every time I see another young man being perished away by drug abuse, it concerns me. And so I aligning myself to this major movement. Um, it wasn't a brain, it was just something that I definitely humanistically wanted to do.
Yeah, Pastor Jack, you wanted to finish your thought? You froze for a minute.
oh, what I'm saying. His boldness, Dr. Laura's boldness, and his the strength to challenge the ills of society, looking from a masculine, from a man point of view, really got me excited. I said, at least there is somebody who's bold enough and strong enough to challenge what we're doing, to do something, at least do something, and not talk about it, just keep talking, and we just all keep talking and preaching and talking, but somebody who was willing to get on the ground and do something. I heard all the plan of it and I got excited about it. And that is something that has been a burden for me all my life. Me being a man the last time I checked. So I couldn't not be part of it. I wanted, if I couldn't be part of all what is happening, at least I know I would attend to listen to other men, because like Carlton said, if you listen well, every man has a story, and his story might start your healing. So I would be happy, and that's why I encourage any man to come to a symposium, a male symposium, because many of us have similar stories, and those I heard has really had an impact on my life. So I can have an impact on somebody else's life. So I encourage people.
Yeah, and I guess the question that comes to mind is what were the themes that emerged from your discussions with the participants? So of course we're not going to get into the specifics because this was a private symposium, but what were some of the themes that were coming out from what you were witnessing? First of all, were the men freely sharing because we talked about the fact that men are taught to, keep in their emotions. So were they free? Did they feel safe enough to share openly, and just some of the themes that emerged as issues that they're facing in Dominica?
Well, I could answer that. I think the groundwork or the ground was laid fertile for people to feel comfortable, relaxed. In fact, upon arrival, we had snacks available for them. It was really nice, snacks were available upon arrival as soon as they registered. There was something available to snack on and some good music at the background. We had live organists playing, and people were getting to know each other. We had name tags. Everybody was interacting. Where you from? Da 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 da. And then we had some icebreakers that even we had some bingo games that allowed people to really melt with each other and just laugh. And I could have people saying, "Oh, you that Carlton landowner?" Or people say, "Oh, that's Pastor Jack. Okay, that's the one I hear on the radio." So it was nice then for people to really mingle. And it was the atmosphere was prepped to allow people to feel safe. We started off with testimonies like with Carlton Lando giving his life story from a child to his man stage, and which was so deep, so he was so vulnerable with the crowd that he told it all, and people were very emotional about his story, which spun off into they wanting to tell their stories, into they wanting to share, into them sharing their regrets, their joys as well. And some of us have done it right, and some of us have failed in that regard. So time was really against us. We realized that the little time that was allotted for this workshop was maybe insufficient, and we have decided to do differently and make it much more protracted stuff next time. We really laid the ground for people who wanted to break from their limiting patterns of thinking to now feel free that they have a fraternity of men that they can share. And don't, up to now, we have a WhatsApp group. All the participants are in a WhatsApp group, and we do have a platform where we can share information and have people feel connected even between sessions. So I would say all in all, it really met our expectations or probably exceeded our expectations, and people are asking for more.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Laurent, and as a participant, Pastor Jack, what were your goals? What were you hoping to see come out of this symposium? What were your expectations of what would transpire at the symposium?
It was well said by Dr. Laura that the ground was set. When I went there, I was praying to God that there would be safe enough ground, vulnerable among men. Because as a pastor, I
Oh, I think he froze again.
vulnerable in a group. And Carlton did such an excellent job that I think it iced the whole session. It gave men a safety net to be vulnerable. And that was my goal, that men would find this little time to say something that they would not otherwise say around a domino table. I was just praying God because men are noted to suppress their emotions, suppress their feelings, suppression. And I was praying that it would happen. And it was so well done that in our group session, little groups, you could have felt that men felt safe enough to tread in areas that I thought that only they would speak to you behind closed doors. So I felt that goal was met. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. And Carlton unfortunately had to leave us, but we want to thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us this evening. But Dr. Laura, again, the theme. So what we're hearing about, frustrations with employment, frustration with family matters, because I think as the general society, we ought to understand some of the issues that our men are talking about. So nothing in terms of personal exchanges that were made, but just give us a sense of some of the issues that came about so that we as a society can begin to look at these issues with a view of making strides to resolving them.
Yeah, several areas made up the discussions. One of them that really brought a lot to the fore was the question of righting the wrongs. Okay, making right the wrongs of life. Many of us, and we all accepted the fact that we have done wrong. We have done wrong in our family life. We've done wrong in society. We've neglected to show up when we needed to show up, and because of that, the consequences were dire. Kids grew up without daddy. Some of us neglected our baby mamas and had people scrounging to survive, if you will, whereas some of us were flourishing on the other side of life. And we talked about when we needed to say something, we did not. And as a result, there were negative consequences because of it. So it was an appeal, an awakening that men, there is a time when you need to show up, and there's a time when you need to let time pass. Or in other words, there's a time for everything. And you don't want to miss your opportunity to show up when you needed to show up. And so this was one that brought a lot of discussion to the forefront. We went into the aspect of accountability. And there were breakout sessions, like Pastor Jack says, where have you felt that you failed in accountability? And people were free to give that back. And some people gave testimonies of their failures when we get back to the bigger rooms. And without going too deep into some of the other things, but these were the sensitive areas where people, because at the end of the day, we wanted people to feel more effective as a human being, as a man. Are you living your most effective life? And are you just spinning your wheels? Do you want to just live and die? Or do you want to know that when you die, you made a difference? And that was kind of where we were with this trend that we followed. So all in all, the topics were carefully selected. They were well massaged and discussed among the groups, and people were willing to bring it to a synthesis that everybody could walk home with something from it.
Yeah, and did you get a sense, both you and Pastor Jack, did you get a sense that this was the beginning of healing for some of the men, a release of the burdens they've been carrying? Because our thoughts can be very burdensome. Because if you never have an opportunity to share what is going on with you, then that becomes an internal stress that can create other physical manifestations, other diseases, in essence, in your body. So did you get a sense that for some of the men, tell us about the reviews, what they told you after? You have a sense of healing from what they were sharing at this symposium?
One of the things I felt was this symposium was beginning something, maybe sounding funny, a Me Too movement. I think there's something like that in the United States.
Yeah.
Me Too. That's what I felt, that the vulnerability of one man, the comfort one man felt in expressing certain aspect of their life, whether present or past, gave other men the strength to say, I see myself in you. And that created a sense of freedom of expression. And that satisfied me, that in the little time we had, some people just put out, maybe sometimes even outside the topic that was given to us, but it was a sense of freedom. At time, I feel safe to say that. And I know usually in talking to men, that is not the usual thing. But at the symposium, we began a Me Too movement. It was a place of awareness And then I had the hope for change because there was a lot of acknowledgement. People came face to face with, that's my story. That is true about me. Or that was true about my father. That is true about my brother. And then I got the hope that there will be change because step number one has been taken.
Yeah, and to add to that, Simone, even after the sessions, people did not have to always have time to share their piece, so they would text me, or in the we had a platform for people to make comments. So I read some of those things after I came back home to the US, and some of the things people discuss with me, I cannot put it out there, but oh, people have a lot to, they have a lot
Mhm.
to test. They have a whole lot to. So I tell you, there is an appetite for this thing. I cannot wait to go back and launch another so that I can make it a little more targeted. And but as far as safety, I think the people feel safe enough to share, and it's going to be part of the healing that we are looking for. That is when you can share and others can identify with your story. And the answer didn't just come from me. The audience contributed to a solution for whoever is having a problem as well. So to me, it was a win-win for all.
Yeah, and I would hope that one of the goals was to take that vulnerability that the men were learning to embrace during the symposium, to take it to the home, to the
Mhm.
other males who, because 45 is an impressive number, it's an impressive start, but this is a country of what, 60,000 people. So the goal I would hope would be to take that teaching how to be vulnerable and how to express yourself outside the symposium to begin that movement of encouraging our men to express ourselves. But I have to ask, what was the age range? Because my concern is always reaching the younger men. The young men I see on the block, I'm from Bath Estate, so I can talk about my community. The young men I see on the corner of the street, day and night, Monday, Sunday, Friday, whatever day it is. Do you have an approach for how we can reach those young men? Because my concern is that they're not going to show up to a symposium such as this. And the fact of the matter is, they're the ones who are most in need of a program such as the one that you've created. So, any thoughts on reaching the young men?
Yes, definitely. Well, the last symposium we had people, their ages ranged from about 35 to about 75.
Oh, good.
And but more of the we had a greater number in the above 50 range, more than, but I agree with you that it would be great to have a draw from maybe 10 years younger, 20 years younger, bring them in. And so we have now embarked on a plan for attracting more young fathers, because your fathers were 15 years old, 16 years old, something. So if we could get a draw from that group on up in our next symposium, in our next one, it would be probably reaching some of what you're asking for there, because we really would like to touch that demographic, bring more of the young adult men among the senior men, so that we can have that camaraderie, and we will try to understand each other better. I think a whole lot of them do not understand the other generation before
Yeah,
them.
there's a generational divide.
There's a big divide, even with the brain drain that took place in Dominica, with the lack of openness that exists in Dominica. There's something missing between what was and what is now. There's a big gap, and we want to fill that. We want to bridge that.
Yeah, certainly. Now, Pastor Jack, in terms of spirituality, what was offered to the men? Because we know now that a lot of our churches are empty, lacking in men, right? So
Right.
do you believe that the lack of spirituality is a contributing factor to what we're seeing in Dominica? The fact that our men have now departed from religious organizations, churches, and so forth.
Um, Let me say that being a young man, when I got myself a little deeper committed to Christ, I was still very young. I was my teens. And I the problem we are facing is that many of our religious institutions has not addressed the spirituality for men. I'm telling that out of 40 something years of experience. We did not address the spiritual part of men. We addressed the religious side. So men became almost allergic to church because church was addressing the religious side of your life, is to introduce you to a structure by which you should live your life. But in all honesty, was not appealing to the spiritual thirst that you came yearning for. And that which was not found at home, church was the place that men, boys looked for it, and it wasn't supplied. So it was no surprise that when men begin to back off, and people think it's because they don't have spiritual need. A spiritual need and a religious need is a complete different thing, because all of the all of the aspect of spiritual characteristics basically has nothing to do with religion. Religion is man structure trying to reach God. Christianity is God trying to reach man. And when you don't present something that reaches down to the core problem that man is facing, man becomes frustrated, rebellious, and even angry because they are not meeting. It's like a hungry person who comes to you for food, and you are not supplying not even bread for them to eat. So out of that hunger, out of that bitterness, everything else, they go to somebody else. They go to steal, they go to do this, and they, because they are hungry. And in the same way, there is a hunger for spirituality. There is a hunger for people to understand it's not about recruiting me for your religious program or a religious association, your church. That is not what I came for. I came for you to meet my spiritual need, to help me develop characteristics and strength that help me to face life in a more comfortable way. And this has to do with principles to you live your daily life, the principles that run a good family, the principle that help me to run a good business, teaching me accountability, transparency, and all the aspects of life. This is spiritual. Raising a hymn and clapping your hands and shouting, speaking in tongues is nothing to do with spirituality. And this is the confusion we have in our country. Our country is a very religious country, but not a very spiritual one. And men are out there screaming out to have the spiritual need met. That's why they don't express themselves emotionally, but the emotional part of yourself is a spiritual aspect of yourself. And you taught how to speak. One of the things I look for the Manhood series is that camaraderie would be created where trust will develop for men to be able to ventilate. That is one of the things I hope. Because if you talk to men, which I do all the time, and you hear the cry, it's a need for spirituality. Stop telling me about your religion. We can get that in every TV program. But if you can meet somebody's spiritual need, they will gravitate towards you because there's a hunger for it.
Yeah, we lost Dr. Laura for just a minute. He will come back soon. But I want us to talk also about beyond the symposium, right? So you talked about the importance of that camaraderie that you hope will come from what we saw at the symposium. So, Dr. Laura, we're talking about beyond the symposium. So one of the things I want to find out from you, you talked about volume 1. So what can we expect, for example, in volume 2?
Okay, we're going to take it up another notch. I considered the first one as an intro. It was something to try out to see how it would go, what the men would. Now that we know the people have an appetite for personal growth and development, increasing relationship, both for themselves and with others, we are now going to go deeper into what I love, and that is people development, organizational development. So I am now I have a few topics that I'm nursing to include in this. One of them is mental health for men. The other one is basically um, habits, habits of successful people. What habits can we teach and adopt to be effective and successful in life, right? Another one that I'm thinking about is conflict management. There is a need with everything going on in Dominica right now. There seems to be a need to teach on that topic of conflict, how you can hold a disagreement conversation without getting violent. How can we agree to disagree? And this, I think, this is so crucial right now that if we don't do it now, we'll have a lawless society. It's not all gone yet. We can still salvage the society, but we all have to rally around the concept of how can I manage conflict better? And then because of that now, I want to teach on what they call crucial conversations. That is, how can we hold conversations that are very high stake oriented without getting ugly with each other? You know, and so I think people, I see it happening on the streets and it's not going too well. Maybe we need to teach how it can be done and let it be done, because there is a need that, you know, political life, you know, relationship life, you know, work life, people are just getting very animalistic with each other. Do we want that society? If we talk about building Dominica into a better Dominica, developing Dominica, I think we need to develop the people of Dominica first, and so that we can have a better Dominica. So we need to touch on those topics in volume 2 to start the ball rolling even further.
Yeah, and also something else to consider as you continue to develop this program is the topic of toxic masculinity,
Yeah.
because unfortunately that is quite prevalent in Dominic. And for anyone in our audience who may be less familiar with what that is, it's just, you know, for example, you constantly hear women in Dominica talking about being harassed when you walk on the street. Simply walking down the street and having, you know, a man forward a cat call to you, you don't respond, he wants to become aggressive, and just so many other examples of toxic masculinity that I believe you should also incorporate in this. So I want to say congratulations. This is a very important first step. But what would you say to those who may think, well, what you're doing is simply a drop in the ocean, right? Because there's so many societal, so kind of broadening the conversation, there are just so many societal issues that are plaguing our men that, you know, you may have somewhat of an impact, but what do you truly expect the magnitude of your impact to be when a lot of what is going on is outside of your ability to solve those problems? So if, for example, a man doesn't have a job and the frustration is coming out from the fact that he doesn't have a job, that is not something you can control for. So what do you say to anyone who might say that these societal issues will greatly dwindle your efforts?
That is so much of a well-loaded question. It has a lot of components to consider, because a lot of what a teacher wants to do is beyond his or her control when you do not have all the resources. You might even have oppositions to what you're doing, because if it's not aligned with certain people and certain things, it might be opposed. But the philosophy that I hold is that if you can touch one life, one life, it's better than what we have now. If you can change the trajectory of one person, and especially a man, every man that is changed is a generation that is changed. One man is a generation. His seed can produce. So if he was going down left and you get him to go right, you have done well in preparing a generation. And then there's a ripple effect that he and his buddies When his buddies see how he has changed, then they too can copycat. They too can be led into the right direction. Other than that, that one person will join the gang that is already going bad, and we have a greater force that's going bad.
Absolutely. Pastor Jack, your thoughts? Is
He's
it frozen?
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed like.
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Pastor Jack? Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it's me.
I think he's
Going to start a business.
Here we go.
Yes, we got you. Go ahead.
I said anybody who's trying to be innovative, creative, have to take this question into consideration. The way I addressed it, because I think what you thought, people are going to say this or this could be so, they're entitled to that. My answer was, what happened if we do nothing?
Mm-hmm.
What happened if we just do nothing? If we don't do this thing, at least something, which will be more devastating?
Right.
Doing this or doing nothing?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever effect it may have on society, as small as it may be, or like when the AIDS virus was introduced, I can remember one lecturer, one health person saying, we need to be very cautious because everybody is who is infected multiplied by 10. They said the same thing for COVID. So I'm saying if we influence 45 men, multiply it by 10, every one man can influence 10 men.
Absolutely.
So if we continue on that trajectory, we will make, it takes one drop may not do anything, but a continuous drop may dig a big hole. So
yeah, and one drop can make a ripple.
Exactly.
It's like throwing a pebble in a lake.
I just think we need more of us to come together and do something.
Mm-hmm.
We may not do the same thing, but do something and do it now. There's an urgency to rescue our men.
Yeah, and it just brings to mind the thought of partnerships. Dr. Laura, any thoughts on partnerships? Maybe the Ministry of, what did Carlton call it, Gender Affairs, and others in that space. So any thoughts on partnerships that might help to, create even a greater impact with what you're trying to do?
Yeah, definitely. That is in motion already. I just received an invitation to be a guest speaker at VF Inc. Men's Symposium, Caribbean Men's Symposium,
Excellent.
coming up in November, I think. And so I'll be a speaker there. And what it is they will have probably some duplication of what we are doing on Manhood. So we're going to try to see where the synergy is between us and work, so that we don't, we use our resources effectively and efficiently, so that we can, for the greater good, because there are some other people who have the same passion. It's just a matter of time before we have a conglomerate of affairs, maybe just one grand symposium that incorporates maybe 2 days of workshops and so forth. But yeah, it's already in motion, because people have heard about the Manhood Series, and I've heard of other organizations, and now we are being invited to another one that is not related to mine, but I'm sure there is some commonality among us.
Yeah, and opportunities to learn as well, because this is new for you. It's a new program in Dominica, so opportunities to learn from those who probably have established organizations, established symposiums that you can learn from and bring it to Dominica, because I dare to say that many of the issues we face in Dominica, the other Caribbean islands also face.
That's
those
right.
issues. So why not partner? Why reinvent the wheel? No need to reinvent the wheel. Take what is working for them and implement it for the benefit of Dominica.
Yeah, I had last volume when I put it on my social status. I have some friends in St. Lucia that I worked with. They were saying, bring that to St. Lucia as well. We love St. Lucia. So who knows where this thing will mush into, And so, because the need that exists in Dominica, it exists, as you said, elsewhere. And man is man. We all have a need for growth and development. And those of us who really want to jump on building a better us, better me, will jump on something like that and maybe make a change in our personal lives as well as our family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. Pastor Jack.
I think, yeah, Jack.
I think I would really encourage Dr. Laurent to have a collaboration with the Ministry of Gender Affairs, and would hope that his interaction with them would bring awareness to, in America, you all guys say Black Lives Matters, that there will be an awareness in the ministry that male lives matters. Because often when they speak of gender in Dominica, if you listen to the context of most of the activities and speeches, is to do with the female. And then hope that our Manhood Series will bring an awareness that.
Yeah, I think he froze for just a minute. Let's give him a second to come back. Okay, so let's take a couple of comments while we're waiting for him. So Sacred Empress says, I wanted to be a fly on the wall at the symposium. Hearing a male perspective or just listening to a man truly express himself in his vulnerability, a safe space to speak. Go ahead, Pastor Jack, you're back.
Because I don't know why that comment came just in time, that many ladies, the female, are so curious about.
Oh, I want to hear what he's saying.
That men feel safe enough to say what is hurting, even to express an opinion. And so I think that is one of the things that that come across to me, that what are you talking about? I would want to hear what men express themselves among men. I'd like to be a fly on the wall.
Yes, but you know, we have to create safe spaces. We have, and I was a bit disappointed because I was happy that the Boy Scouts were back in Dominica because they had been on a hiatus for a while. But then come to realize the Boy Scouts now includes girls. So I'm thinking to myself, we need these opportunities for the socialization and the development focus on boys and men, because boys and men behave differently when women and girls are present. And so, you know, with promoting this program, I'm so happy my friend Tanya Dixon in Dominica, she also mentioned there's a Boys to Men summer camp program that is going on now. And Dr. Laura, I'm going to send you the flyer because yet another opportunity to reach out to someone who's focusing on the development of our boys and men in Dominica. So I'm going to send that to you. And I'm also going to invite, I forgot who the name of the speaker, she did mention his name, but I'm forgetting his name right now. But I have the information and I'll send it to you. And I'm going to have him join us as well, because we have to keep this ongoing. This cannot be a one-time conversation. This cannot be a conversation when another gun violence, another suicide occurs. We jump on the radio and we start talking and talking and talking. But then by tomorrow, we've moved on to another conversation.
Yes.
We do not solve anything with that approach. So we have to keep this on the front burner among the 101 issues we have to keep on the front burner in Dominica. And so I'm prepared to support you in any way in terms of giving you the space and the exposure so you can receive even more support for this program. And then we have Alvin Thomas. He says, good evening, Simone and guests. Just logged in, coming from another meeting. Good to see my friend Kevin, friend and neighbor, right, Alvin?
Yes.
Alvin, next time we line in at my house, we have to invite Kevin.
Yeah,
but just keep in mind, guys, if you are listening and you missed a portion of the program, always remember you can jump on Facebook and YouTube at Q95 FM Radio or Push Past 10 on Facebook to catch the entire replay of this program. And we want to encourage you to share this program. You know, I always say when I do these programs, I want us to be thinking, how can we make a meaningful contribution to the work that our fellow brothers and sisters are doing, so that we can turn that passion, the same passion we call the radio with every day, and the same passion we used to post all those comments on Facebook. It's going to take more than just that passion to move our country and our people forward. It's going to take action. So what role can you play? with the work that Dr. Laurent, the men's series, is doing in Dominica. And if you cannot think of any other role you can play, simply share this program so we can get the exposure. I'm just looking at my Facebook, and we've already received over 500 views. So that is a good indication that people are interested in what you're talking about, and we hope that they will share. So don't forget, you can catch the replay, and don't forget to share the information so we can continue to get the support for this program. So final thoughts before we leave, our contact information. Dr. Laura, if anyone wants to get in touch with you to make a meaningful contribution to the work that you're doing.
Yes, sure. Final thoughts. We can be reached. I'll give you my email, Simone. Use my email line, and we have stations going around on WhatsApp. So as we prepare for our next session in October, I just want to remind people that this workshop is ideal for men who are ready to break the limiting patterns in their life, limiting patterns, those that want to build better and stronger connections in their lives. They want to cultivate habits that enhance themselves and their purpose in life. You were brought to this earth for a purpose. You've got to live for your purpose. And whether you're striving to be in a better career, whether you're striving to strengthen your relationships at home and at work, whether you want to lead with greater intentions, this Manhood Series is for you. It is the right thing for you. You come in a safe environment where you can express yourself and hear and learn from other people's expressions and just grow as an individual. Let's build men. Let's build men together. Men can build men better than anybody else can. So let's do this.
Yeah, and the email address I have for you is laurakp4@gmail.com. Is that a good one to share? Okay,
That's
so
correct.
for those listening on the radio, Dr. Laura's email address is LAURENT, Laurent, K as in kite, P as in Peter, 4@gmail.com. So again, LAURENTKP4@gmail.com. And if you're on Facebook and YouTube, then I am posting it right now for you. Pastor Jack, your final thoughts before we wind down.
Let me say thank you to you and thank you to Dr. Laurent for inviting me tonight. I was inspired. And my campaign is to encourage as many men as possible to get on board and also encourage those of you who are able to make an impact. I don't know what your contribution may be, but if you can make a contribution, I'm sure Dr. Laura will entertain that. This is a symposium where I can comfortably say, each one, teach one. So if you don't think you have to learn anything, you can come and teach us something. God bless you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Simone.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. And, I just want to leave our audience with this particular phrase that I saw, and it was so profound to me. It says, our men break not because they are weak. They break because they have been strong for far too long. Okay, so let me repeat that. Our men break not because they are weak. They break because they have been strong for far too long. So how are we helping our men to carry the weight of manhood? How are we helping them to navigate masculinity? So Dr. Laura, you have an open invitation whenever you're ready to promote the next volume in the Manhood Series. I am readily available. So guys, thank you for being here. Lambi, thank you for being here, showing Mr. G, the Q95 family, our listeners, our viewers on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for being here as we continue to bring you our visionaries, those who are on the forefront of leading the way of impactful change that we need in our society. So I want to thank everyone for being here. We will be back with you in the next 2 weeks with another engaging conversation in terms of how we can help to move our country forward. So again, I am Dr. Simone Matthew. It is always a pleasure to be with you as we continue to harness the power of technology, international radio, social media, and podcasts to leverage the expertise of our brothers and sisters around around the world for the sustainable development of our beautiful country, Dominica. If you as well are making impactful change in your community, in your corner of the world, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at pushpast10@gmail.com. That is pushpast10@gmail.com. And for all the ways that I continue to positively impact the world, and you can join me on that journey, especially as it relates to being on the journey of health and wellness, you can visit me at pushpast10.com. So with that, good night, good evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Dr. Laura, Pastor Jack, Carlton, thank you for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Roots Connections on Q. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. every other Wednesday on Q95, the big station. Dominicans journeyed beyond our shores for decades in search of economic opportunity.